So you're in a conversation and you can feel it slipping. So you try to explain more. And somehow it gets worse. And you wonder, why do some moments spiral out of our control even when we're right? The truth is, urgency doesn't create clarity. It destroys it. When emotions take the lead, influence and authority fade, no matter how valid our point is. I like to call this the escalation trap. It's a pattern a lot of us fall into whenever our feelings demand an immediate response. But here's the part that's easy to miss. Most people think the problem is the emotions. That if we could just stay calm, everything would just work out. But that's not what actually breaks the interaction. It's the timing. Because even when we're right, the moment we let anxiety lead, without the right timing and headspace, the other person doesn't hear clarity anymore. They feel pressure, and pressure creates resistance. This is where it gets uncomfortable. Because at that moment, we believe that if we fix the problem faster, the anxiety will just go away. But ironically, it just pushes the solution further away. I put myself in these situations more times than I can count. A few years ago, I managed a gym, and I had a large team. One day, a team member was aggressively pushing a deadline, insisting that it couldn't be met as planned. And I remember that feeling clearly, that spike of urgency, the urgency to respond immediately. I wanted to match their energy and push back. However, by then, I had reached to a point where I knew that if I went back to my old habits, things would just escalate and any progress would just go out the window. So instead of getting pissed off and raising my voice, I paused. I let the spike in tension pass and let that moment sink in. After a deep breath and some careful word choices in my mind, I decided to speak with intention. So I acknowledged their concerns and calmly outlined my expectations and consequences. I was helping them see the blueprint and structure that was already in my head, and that conversation felt more like a plan reveal instead of an argument. Just like one of those treasure hunting movies when the main character opens the squirrel for the first time. Anyway, to my surprise, the team followed through and listened attentively. No defensiveness, just clarity. So, if we give in to our anxiety and react for the sake of dumping unnecessary information, we end up taking more time to solve a problem that could have been handled with just a few clear statements. We're still working toward the same outcomes in both approaches, but without structure, not only does the time cost increase, the effort required to maintain clarity also increases. What should have been a short exchange becomes repeated explanations. What should have been a simple alignment turns into a slow attempt to repair the confusion that didn't even need to happen in the first place. The more this pattern repeats, the harder it is to make actual progress. Not because the problem is complex, but because the way we're handling it keeps adding friction to something that could have been simple. Without structure, you don't just lose time in the moment. You lose momentum across everything that comes after it, including your time, your effort, and your money. And you may end up spending extra time fixing the problems created by the initial reactions, which pushes you further away from where you started. Another time more recently, I was in a parent-teacher meeting. The parent became emotional, defensive, and increasingly agitated. And honestly, I don't blame them, because we were talking about a matter of bullying in school. When they raised their voice, my instinct was to match their energy and explain more to make them understand. I had this belief that if they could understand, they'd calm down. But as their voice grew louder, something clicked. I realized that I had been on the other side of this pattern before. And all the extra information I was trying to use to reduce tension was actually increasing it. So instead of adding more explanation, I tried my best to focus on what was actually relevant and kept my tone neutral. And the moment I did that, the conversation stopped escalating. The situation didn't become perfect, but at least it became stable. And from there, resolution became possible again. After making the same mistake more times than I can count, I narrowed it down to 3 steps that help me maintain influence and reduce unnecessary costs in real situations. The first thing I do is that I pause before I respond, even if it's just for a few seconds. Those seconds really make a difference. You would not believe how many times those pauses saved me from saying something stupid. The pause gives you time and space to evaluate the situation and calm your nerves. Then I raise my awareness of what I'm feeling in the moment. I ask myself how I would identify my emotions. Doing this not only helps me read myself better, but also pulls me out of the tension for a second. And again, buying myself some thinking time and some clarity. And after that, I decide my first sentence before I say it, down to how I reopen the conversation. Pauses give people more time to progress. And what comes after that pause tends to land with more clarity and more weight. So if you struggle to come up with the best solutions during pressure periods or important conversations, run these steps. And they'll not only help you maintain influence, but also help you make the right decisions. In the next episode, we'll look at how these patterns repeat over time and quietly shape the roles you fall into. And most importantly, how to shift those roles without confrontation. And if you found this video helpful, I recommend watching this video right here. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!